Okay, field biology students, we are out here outside doing tree hugging 101, also known as identification and aging of trees. Beautiful day here. Here's the equipment that I have. I've got a tape measure, and that's why we call it tree hugging, because you might have to wrap your arms around to get the circumference of the tree. But I also have my data table, then I've got my ID book that's here. You know, I tell students most of the time that they need to know certain kinds of leaves just kind of by sight. And I'm hoping that a lot of people can start recognizing an oak leaf. That's a red oak versus the white oak. The white oak has rounded lobes, versus the red oak family that has pointed lobes. And there are a bunch of different oak trees. The white oak family, this is actually a swamp white oak because you can tell with the kind of the whole fat leaf all throughout. A plain white oak leaf would have very skinny sinuses and skinny and even throughout, versus a bur oak, which has one deep skinny sinus right about here, and then it widens out. In fact, I might show you one in just a little bit. In the red oak family, there's also northern pin oaks and black oaks, but they all have the pointy edges that are like that. Classic oak leaf shape, though. They also call this a simple leaf. Oh, here we go. There's that bur oak I was talking about, right? And they all have different growth factors. All right. Then there's also this leaf. You know what kind of tree this comes from? This is a maple leaf right here, another simple leaf. The hugest leaf probably in the forest around here is a linden, also known as a basswood. There's our basswood. But we can also find things like ironwood with a super slow growth rate. Notice the toothed margins on the edge. We'll come back to that in a second. And then this last one I've got here is a cottonwood. So we've got different kinds of leaves from deciduous trees. The history of Owatonna, Minnesota in this area is that we have trees that lose their leaves in the winter. Broadleaf trees, also known as deciduous trees. There are coniferous trees that have needles as opposed to leaves, that they keep their needles year round, but you generally don't find those in southeastern Minnesota. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through this Dichotomous Key tree book. We flip through, the first part shows some background, then it gets into the coniferous trees. You've got like cedars, pine, spruce, but then in the deciduous trees is what we're going to focus on. And on this page here, you can see that we have alternate leaf patterns versus opposite leaf patterns, generally on compound leaves, or whorled. Compound leaves are smaller leaves like these little leaflets, all on one long stalk here, versus a simple leaf. And we had the oak and we had the maple that are like that. So then we have simple leaves, just one leaf, palmately compound, pinnately compound, or even doubly compound like a honey locust. And then the leaf margins, that's the edge, so you can have smooth leaf margins, fine-toothed, coarse-toothed, doubly toothed, or lobed, and these are considered lobed leaf lobes here. Again, I'm going to jump ahead here to page 25. This is how the Dichotomous Key works. Basically, you look at the tree, especially with the leaves, and you ask yourself, is it 1A or 1B? Are the leaves opposite or whorled, or 1B, are the leaves alternate, never opposite? Well, if we look at this tree right here, kind of hard to see the leaves that are way up there, but I tell you what, those leaves are compound and they are alternate. Every other side, they've got a little leaflet coming off there. So we go back to the tree ID book and we say, all right, so it's not 1A, it is 1B. Leaves are alternate, never opposite or whorled. Are the leaves compound? Yes, in fact, they are compound. They are not simple, right? Leaves simple like this. So it's not 11B. They are actually compound. They've got a lot of little leaflets. So then is it 12A or 12B? 12A, are they doubly compound or pinnately compound? They are not. Leaves are pinnately compound, never doubly. Yes. So that means we're going on 12B over here. 14A, are the branches armed with spikes? There are no spikes or spines there, so it's not 14A, it's 14B. No, not armed with spikes or spines. Then it gets down to 16A and 16B. This is a dichotomous key again. It's either this or this, right? Trying to identify. Is the fruit a husked nut, bark usually rough with inconspicuous lenticels? Or is the fruit fleshy, orange colored? Well, you know what? There's no fruit on the tree now. We're in the kind of early fall and the fruit has fallen. So I wonder, can we find any fruit pieces? Of course, the squirrels have kind of done a pretty good job of eating some of these, but here's one of the husks. You know what this is a husk of? This is a walnut. And so then you're thinking, oh, is this a walnut tree? Let's take a look in the tree ID book. We think maybe it's a walnut, page 44, 45. So jump to page 44 or 45. And sure enough, there it is. This is a black walnut tree. Black walnut tree. So then on your data table, you're going to write in the common name, black walnut. The genus name is listed in the ID book here. And for black walnut, the scientific name is Juglans nigra. And nigra, of course, means black. And if you think about like humans, our scientific name is Homo sapiens, which means wise people. But here we're just going to write in the word Juglans for the species name for all walnut trees right there. Then we have to figure out the circumference. And holding the phone and doing this at the same time might be a bit of a challenge. But I use my tape measure to measure in inches, actually. And I wrap around at 4.5 feet off the ground. I'm not going to be able to do this with one hand. We go around the outside here, and this is where your tree hugging might come into play to wrap the circumference around and measure what that is. Then, on your other sheet that you should have at home, besides the data table, after you read this, it does tell you that the diameter equals the circumference divided by pi, 3.14. So you're going to take your number of circumference, divide by pi, 3.14, and that'll get your diameter. Then with the growth factor, again from this sheet here, and if we find black walnut, there's black walnut. Black walnut's growth factor is a 4.5, so kind of a medium growing, not super fast. A 2 is really fast, like cottonwood and aspen. A 7 is really slow, like ironwood or dogwood. That's really slow growing. So we're kind of right in the middle here with the black walnut. So you'd write your 4.5 growth factor, multiply the diameter times the growth factor, and that gives you the age of the tree. How old is this tree? Then to figure out year germinated, well, we live in the year right now, 2020. So take 2020 minus the age that you calculated, and that will give you your year germinated. Germinated means the year that it started growing. All right, so we've got some other trees here on campus. You go back through that dichotomous key book, and you start looking and thinking, well, it's deciduous, it's not coniferous, and it's simple, not compound. The leaf margins are lobed, not compound. And then in fact, they're palmately lobed, and you can kind of crack this down to get to be a maple tree. And this one in particular is a sugar maple. Beautiful fall colors here. We have silver maples and red maples around here. And then there's also, well, this sugar maple that's here right now, right? Other ones that we've got, how about this leaf here? Again, a simple leaf, not compound, but in fact this is doubly toothed margins. Turns out that this one is an American elm. It's got uneven base, lopsided base on the next to the petiole that's coming off of there. So we've got American elm there. We can look down at the end. Way down here we've got a bur oak. There's another green ash further down there. So then take a look at your data sheets that I'm going to give you and fill in the rest of the information. Just wanted to show you how to do tree identification, also known as Tree Hugging 101.